was a very impoverished church because it was so costly to maintain the buildings and to rebuild from either an earthquake or a volcano. One of the historical facts recorded about this church is that it was absolutely filthy, and the buildings and the houses were considered to be of the poorest quality and not maintained. But what I want you to hear is this church in that state, in that situation, with that pressure, with those problems, defended their faith for over 80 years. This church, with those problems, with those difficulties, was a church that Jesus looked at and he said, man, I'm so aware of you. I'm so proud of you, and I'm going to protect you from the testing that's coming on the whole earth. So I don't know about you, but the first thing that the Holy Spirit said to me is, this is a church that tells you how to live when you're pressured on all sides. This is a church that tells you how to live when you feel like you have been forgotten by everybody. This is a church that tells you how to live when you don't have an ability to trust anybody, because everybody has betrayed you. This is a church that tells you how to live in times of natural disasters that bring poverty left and right. So let's start in verse 7, because this is a foundation. To the angel, the messenger of the assembly of the church in Philadelphia, write, these are the words of the Holy One, the true one, he who has the key of David, who opens and no one shall shut, and shuts and no one shall open. The first thing that he gave them was the truth of the basis of their faith. And the first thing is, God is holy. And that means the most holy thing. And the first thing that that church grabbed a hold of, and you're going to watch through the verses that it talks about, is they understood that circumstances, situations, tribulations, persecution, difficulties did not change who God is. And one of the things that has got to be just ingrained in us is, if we are in a time of testing, we're in a time of trouble, we're in a time of difficulty and pressure, we cannot lose the sight of the fact that that doesn't change who God is and that he is holy. But the next word is the most important, because it says holy and true. And that word in the Greek means sincere, and in every respect corresponding to the ideas signified by his name. That's going to become real important as we look down these verses, because this church never lost sight of every meaning for the name Jesus. They never lost sight of every character attribute that was wrapped up in the nature of God. And God is talking to the church today and saying to us, we need to grab a hold, not just in our head, but in our heart, of who God really is. There's a scientific study that's being presented now, and it's a very interesting one, and it says that in your brain, your conscience dwells in the front part of your brain. And when your conscience decides the truth of something, it passes that information to your heart. And there is an aspect of your heart that has a brain. And once that conscience passes to that brain that's in your heart, the truth of something, the conviction of something, your heart becomes resolute behind that idea. Isn't it funny? The Bible has always said, out of the heart the mouth speaks. Long before science could tell us that there was a reason for that, God has always said there was a difference between what your brain said was true and what your heart said was true. And God is talking to the church about moving the facts of who God is into that conscious part, our conscience, so that it can be transmitted to our heart, so that we can become people who say, I know who God is. For this church, where they had been lied to by everybody, what they were grabbing a hold of was, everybody's unfaithful, but God is not unfaithful.